I don't think there's risk. It still comes down to having a good football team and building a good roster around everybody. I mean, there's players here that are talented. There's rookies that are going to be coming in that are talented, and the expectation is that they're one of 53 when it's all said and done, and they've all got to perform their best to create a great football team. And so as far as pressure is concerned, there's no pressure on me. It's just there's always pressure. There's always pressure to put together the best football team we possibly can, regardless of who's playing. So very comfortable with every decision that's made, and it's our job to get him to put him in the best position to be successful. And that not just the quarterback, but every single player that takes the field. The one thing that I can attest to is from a schematic standpoint, the scheme that LaFleur is bringing is the best scheme in the world.
Robert Saleh talking about the prospect of playing a rookie quarterback. Peter, 5-10 years ago, that would have raised some eyebrows. Nowadays, it's just a given. With all these great young quarterbacks coming into the NFL and this clamoring to get your franchise guy who's going to be with you, not just 5 or 10 years, but maybe if you're lucky, 15 years, maybe longer than that. I think that's another impact of the Tom Brady career. You get that guy who is the guy. You've got that position taken care of for a long time. So you throw him into the fray and you see what he can do. That's become the default now. The days of putting a guy on a bench for a year or two, they're not over. It's just the exception now. The rule is if you're going to use a first-round pick on a quarterback, especially closer to the top, that guy's getting on the field or you're going to draft somebody else.
Yeah, Mike, I think over the years, two of the reasons why it has become so much more accepted that you're going to play a quarterback early. Number one, in college football right now, it used to be, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, that a college football team would play a different game from an NFL team, and now the games are so much more similar. I think number two is that quarterbacks, most of them, are playing football a lot more before they get to college. These 7-on-7 leagues, Andy Dalton told me a few years ago, he goes, basically the redshirting need when you get to pro football is not nearly what it used to be because we've already been playing, in essence, so many of us, 2 seasons, a fall season and a spring season all through like middle school, high school. And so I think that those two aspects really are feeding into just the fact that teams want players to play early and they're significantly more ready to play early. Do you remember last year on Hard Knocks when early on in training camp, you would watch Hard Knocks and there would be Pep Hamilton, the quarterback coach of the Chargers, and he would be talking to Justin Herbert. And I mean, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was almost like, dude, get it together. Come on, let's go. And he did. He did get it together. In one training camp, he proved that he was ready when that needle accidentally punctured Tyrod Taylor's lung, that he was more than ready to play, and he played great. And I think that is what teams see right now. Joe Burrow last year, if he didn't get hurt, Joe Burrow was going to have a phenomenal year. And he probably would have been Rookie of the Year over Justin Herbert. At least it would have been close. And so last year, 2 quarterbacks picked of the top 3, 2 of the 3 were eminently ready to play football opening day for an NFL team. And that's why I think you see all these teams scrambling to get to the top. And Mike, I'm in the process of doing research now for my mock draft, and I think it's really possible that those 5 quarterbacks all go in the top 9 picks, whether it's to a team in that slot or whether it's going to be traded, because there are teams talking to try to get up there and who want those quarterbacks. So they see what we see. They see the potential. Let's get your guy and start playing him right now.
And have him for a long, long time and have that position taken care of. That gives you job security. as a coach. You think Brett Veach or Andy Reid are going to be in any trouble during the duration of Patrick Mahomes' career? I don't think so. And I think that same mindset applies. And, Rich Eisen and I were talking about this earlier in the week because he was a big proponent of Kyle Pitts to the Falcons potentially at 4, and still is. That could happen. But my point is, you take Kyle Pitts and you scratch off that lottery ticket, the winner is capped at $100,000. The winner for a franchise quarterback lottery ticket, that prize is a hell of a lot more than that. And that's not taking anything away from Kyle Pitts, but there's plenty of great skill position players out there. And a great quarterback makes an average skill position player into a better skill position player. It's the quarterback that everyone wants. It's the quarterback that makes you relevant every year, that keeps putting you in the playoffs and makes your team one of the most desirable teams in the entire league. That's what these teams are looking for, and I think that's why this trend of rookie quarterbacks being drafted high, playing right away, and then in turn, when we get to February and March, veteran quarterbacks constantly available. Teams are going to be willing to cut the cord on a veteran guy because they're looking for that franchise guy. And unless you're that franchise guy, you're going to be at risk of being not re-signed, potentially cut, potentially traded, because they're always looking for that guy that's going to be the answer for a generation, maybe longer.
Mike, I'm going to take a slight right turn here, and I'm going to just tell you one other aspect of this as you were talking that really hit me in the head. It's occurred to me all week as I've been doing some research into the draft. It's occurred to me that there is one team that is really going to be negatively impacted by the quarterback mania in this draft, and that is the Chicago Bears. And here's why. The Bears pick 20. It's almost certain that none of those quarterbacks are going to be around at number 20. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that if the Bears want any of those quarterbacks and have to trade up into, say, the top 7 or 8 picks in order to get one of those quarterbacks, what are they going to have to do? Well, there is a template out there, and it's San Francisco to Miami. You're going to have to pay your 22nd and 2022 and 23 first-round picks. Suppose you're Ryan Pace and you go to George McCaskey, the owner representative of the Chicago Bears, the chairman of the Bears, and you say to him, listen, we can get Trey Lance, but we got to give up our first-round picks in 22 and 23. What goes through George McCaskey's head? If I were George McCaskey, I would say, I barely brought these guys back this year. And now if we go 6-11 this year and both of these guys get fired, Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, then where are we? I got to hire a general manager and a head coach and tell them, oh, by the way, your welcome gift is that you don't have a 1 in either of the next 2 drafts. So when that just occurred to me when you were talking about that, and I just say, man, the Bears cannot catch a break.
Yeah, Peter, we've been on that issue to a certain extent, the idea that it's in the interests of Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy to trade future assets and move up and get a guy, the presence of whom gives them job security, because it will be more difficult to fire them after this year because you're taking the chances. A new GM, new coach wants nothing to do with that guy you gave up all that stuff to go get. You're right. It does make it harder for them. I think the team that picks one spot before, Washington, there's been some noise about them moving up. They're in a different position, different dynamic. Everyone's on the same page. But when you've got this hot seat, this simmering hot seat, it does complicate a desire to potentially move up. And also, look, there's human nature at play here. Pace and Nagy are smart enough to know that they're more likely to come back in 2022 if they're developing this young quarterback, and also if they've traded the first-round pick next year and maybe the year after that. So, yeah, that's where others have to get involved and make sure they know what they're getting into, because it does make it very difficult to make changes once you've mortgaged the future the way that the Bears would have to.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.